I read a poll just yesterday that white Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican.
Why?
It's almost like roaches voting for Raid.
I think that's
they're voting.
No, it's insulting to the voter.
They're voting against their own self-interest. Do they want to live in Gilead?
Okay,
do
so do we love
in the hands?
Do we love democracy?
The notion of patriotism and the notion of America and the American flag has been co-opted by the right as if they are true patriots. But when I listened to Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, he said white supremacy is the biggest domestic threat to this country. And so as a woman of color with a 6'2" black kid in college and a 5'7", 5'8" black kid in high school, I don't see that part of American exceptionalism. I'm sorry.
So we have to talk about Sunny Hostin on The View. Sunny Hostin is probably the most well-known race hustle, race grifter, victim pusher there is. And she does it every single day on The View. She pushes this vile, toxic brew of victimization that poisons the ears of people that listen to it. But yet, somehow, she still seems to be employed by ABC News, which is not surprising because she is there to push a narrative that America is systemically racist, that black people are afraid for their lives, and that white supremacy still reigns supreme. That is what she's there for. She's part of the black bougie elite. She's part of that triumvirate where you have the black pastors, the church plant pastors. You have the black sorority. She's an AKA. And then you have the athletes and entertainers. And then you have these media people and politicians. She's one of those kind of folks. So she has a history of attacking black men, white women, and white men, and America.
That Tim Scott has is that he seems to think because I made it, everyone can make it. Ignoring, again, the fact that he is the exception and not the rule. And until he is the rule, then he can stop talking about systemic racism.
He's got Clarence Thomas syndrome.
But the only thing that I worry about is like a Ginny Thomas popping up. Right? So you have someone that is single and someone becomes president, and then he meets a Ginny Thomas who is, and I think most people know, there's some wonder as to how involved she is with what has happened on the Supreme Court because her husband is on the Supreme Court and that little pillow talk that happens on January 6th. Yeah. And so if someone is not married and then they get married to Ginny Thomas, I'm concerned.
So in this case, she was talking about Tim Scott when he was running for president. That she was concerned that he would marry a Ginny Thomas type. No, you weren't, Sonny. You were concerned that that man would marry a white woman, which he ended up doing, which is his prerogative, his choice. That's what you wanted to say, but you couldn't say it.
To Donald Trump. I thought it was interesting that the framing was a room of black Republicans. Where are they? Where are they? Because if you look at the stats, 81% of black men are part of the Democratic Party. Black voters consistently align with the Democratic Party. Over 95% of black women are part of the Democratic Party. So these black men that he was speaking with, I'd love to see them. It would be like looking at unicorns. But, we can't poll people's hearts, and we can't see into people's hearts. And so when we're looking at these polls and we're looking at who is voting for Trump, you've got 53% of white women that voted for him in 2020. We've got to reach those women. We've got to reach those ridiculous, crazy black men that did vote for Trump. We've got to reach those people. We've got to reach the Cuban men in Miami that overwhelmingly voted for Trump. I don't know what their hearts look like, but I know what their votes look like. I'd like to reframe the conversation. I think Bernie Sanders is wrong. I think the more relevant question actually is what is wrong with America? I think what is wrong with our country that the Republican Party would choose as a candidate and support a candidate who is an insurrectionist, who is an election denier, who is someone who is twice impeached, a 34-time convicted felon, someone who has been accused of alleged sexual misconduct by 26 women, found liable for sexual abuse. What is wrong with this country that they would choose a message of divisiveness, of xenophobia, of racism, of misogyny, over a message of inclusiveness, a message for the people, by the people, of the people.
not
That's
just
what the problem is.
Republicans.
It's
He
the
won the
Republican
popular vote.
Party.
But can
And
I,
what's
can
wrong
I
with
say
America?
something before?
Are you talking?
Well,
Okay.
And there's probably some black woman in the audience talking about, go ahead, Sunny. I tell you, feminism has done a number on the black community. And I made that video a couple of days ago talking about spiritual slavery, how slavery has really repurposed and reformed itself in the black community, in the sense that now you have like 90% of black people voting for the Democratic Party. I'm gonna do something longer on that because it really ties into when Jesus talked about when an unclean spirit leaves a man and comes back and finds it swept and unclean, the latter state of that man or that culture or that community is worse. And also when Paul talked about don't be entangled again to bondage, that is very akin to what has happened in the black community. When black people were liberated, emancipated from slavery, and had a period of freedom. But then with Jim Crow and all those things, they were pushed to return to the Democratic Party through the Civil Rights Movement. And now for the last 60 years, black folks, the black community by and large, has been enslaved again to the Democratic Party. The same ones that enslaved them at the beginning.
You know, again, I got my popcorn. I don't know why people did what they did. I see all these reasons. And so, okay, time will tell. But what do y'all think?
I just, I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends. But it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist, even if your lived experience doesn't tell you that it exists. And the facts support that. I think we have a graph. If you look at there's a clear racial divide in who voted for Trump as opposed to who voted for.
Now take a look at this chart. This illustrates exactly what I've been saying about how the Democratic Party has enslaved black people. She's trying to put this chart up to say that everybody else is racist, that white people are racist, that even Latinos are racist towards black people. But you see the margins between Hispanic, Latino, Asian, white, and other between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and this was just 22,000 respondents, so this is just a sample, that the margins are small. You see that? But look at the black row. 85% voted for Kamala Harris and only 13% for Trump. Doesn't that show you that this is akin to slavery? Because black people are so in the tank for the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has always been the slave master to black folks. They have. And they use people like Sunny Hostin to continue that oppression.
For Kamala Harris, it's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that is not true, this is by education. Those who attended college voted for her at a higher degree than those that didn't.
But I
and
think
I've
you're
said
missing his point.
Let me just finish. And so I've said that before, and there was so much backlash because I think it's an uncomfortable, inconvenient truth about this country.
But his whole point is they didn't vote for him because of racism and misogyny. They voted for him because they felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well,
and whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans,
black people
they thought that he was...
More black people did vote for him, Sonny, but black people are enslaved by the Democratic Party, mentally and spiritually. That's why they didn't vote for him, Sonny, because you know this, that's disingenuous. You know that a lot of black people were afraid to say that they will vote for Donald Trump because they'd be excommunicated by their family. And we're seeing that play out. Don't play dumb, Sonny.
One of the poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had historically. I think that there's such a desire. If you really think the vast majority of this country voted because of racism and misogyny, you're missing it. Most of my family, a lot of my family doesn't have college degrees.
But the stats are the stats.
But that's not, it doesn't say I'm white, I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not
you
what
can't-
that. What
you
stat
can't
are you talking
you
about?
can't dissect the
Yes,
two.
you can. There's a lot
Hold
more
on,
to this
hold on.
Sunny Hostin is on The View to push the idea that America is systemically racist. Does racism still exist? Yes. Is there some misogyny? Yes. Because the heart of man is evil, it's deceitful, it's wicked. That's why you need to be regenerated. That's why you need to be born again. Because when you're born again, when you're regenerated, you don't see people based upon external characteristics. You don't see people based upon immutable characteristics. You see them as made in the image of God, and you have compassion, but you also stand on the principles found in the Word of God. And when you do that, you don't blame racism and sexism for a decision that you don't like because your black bougie elite soror didn't win. Sunny Hostin has been pushing hatred and insulting America, white men, white women, and black men forever. It's time for that to end because all she's doing is making those black women that she claims to support victims. But I'm here to tell you, we're not victims. We are empowered for greatness.